The skin modifier will generate polygonal mesh around single vertices or edges with no face data. I'll start very simply and add a single vertex. The option to do this is hidden in an add-on which isn't enabled automatically. If you go to your preferences and we go to our add-ons, we can search under Add Mesh and enable Extra Objects. This will allow you to add, among a lot of other things, a single vertex. I'll now add the skin modifier to it. Starting simple gives us a good idea of some of the things skin does by default. It creates a quad mesh 0.25 units around the vertex in each axis. I'm going to go to my display settings and toggle wireframe mode on, and I'll also enable X-ray. I'll make sure that in the skin modifier, I can view the changes while I'm in edit mode. Let's extrude the vertex up 1 meter in the Z direction. I'll select the original vertex and I'll extrude it again in the X and the Y direction, so now we have a simple branch. By default, Symmetry X is enabled. I'm going to disable this for the moment so we can look at branch smoothing. By increasing this setting, the topology around any vertex which meets at 3 or more edges will be relaxed. The symmetry attempts to fix any problematic areas around these vertices by addressing the quads which sit across the X, Y, or Z axes. With or without branch smoothing on, these usually make cleaner topology. Smooth shading simply creates the same kind of smooth shading you get when assigning any mesh a smooth shade. We'll circle back to create armature in a moment, but first let's look at the mark loose and clear loose settings. By default, the skin modifier will calculate the most optimal amount of edge rings between two vertices. But if I mark this root vertex as loose, then no edge rings will be generated between the vertices. However, if I subdivide an edge ring will now appear around the new vertex. I can also clear loose vertices so that the edge loops will be generated evenly along any edges. You may have noticed this red dotted line around one vertex in particular. Depending on the order in which you may have extruded out branching vertices, this might not be sitting at the original vertex. You can select any vertex you wish and mark it as root. Doing this impacts the kind of armature that is created when we click on the Create Armature button. I'll duplicate this mesh, and along with it its modifier, and I'll mark two different roots. You can only see the root vertex in edit mode. Now, I'll create an armature for each. The default display for the new armatures is stick. But to see what's really going on, it's better if we switch this display to octahedron for each of them. I'm going to also enable Show Names. The armature on the left only has 3 bones. It begins where we marked the vertex's root and extends down, then branches out along the X and the Y arms. However, the armature on the left is a little different. It consists of 4 bones. An extra root bone has been generated from which the 3 arms branch out of. Any vertex marked root which connects 2 or more edges will have a root bone created in this way. I'll focus on this right mesh for the moment. I'll select it and take a look at the modifier properties. You'll notice that an armature modifier has automatically been added with the object armature selected, preserve volume and vertex groups enabled. Under the object data properties, even though 4 bones were generated for this armature, only 3 vertex groups have been created. Let's take a look at the armature and toggle into pose mode. The mesh has automatically been set up with this custom armature, basic weight painting, and a hierarchy. This means if we grab the root bone, This should move the entire armature. Not shown in the modifier, but a handy tip to know, is how the radius of the generated mesh can be scaled and modified around any vertex by hitting Ctrl A. This is the equivalent to scaling vertices on a mesh using Alt S to shrink or fatten geometry. You can even constrain the scale of the X, Y, or Z axis after you hit Ctrl A by hitting the corresponding key. If you wish to remove any asymmetrical scaling, you can use the Equalize Radii button.